A very good morning to all the students of class 12th. And students, we were doing the third chapter of your book, Contemporary World Politics. And the name of the chapter is New Centers of Power. So we were doing the third chapter and we were into the fourth part now, as we have already finished the European Union and then we had taken the ASEAN. In those three videos, we had covered two topics. Those were the new emerging powers which could challenge the dominance of US hegemony or the US dominance around the world recently. Okay, so now today we are going to talk about China as the emerging economy and the emerging country which can challenge the dominance of US again. Okay, so the topic would be the rise of Chinese economy. So when we talk about the dominance and power of China, so it means we are mostly talking about its economy. So economically it has grown so strong from the last few years that we call it, and we are studying it under a topic that is new centers of power, alternative centers of power, or new centers of power as a name according to the new revised syllabus. Okay, so let's study something about China. And as recently you know how important China has become, how it is acting as a very important player at the world platform. So let's study about China something. So China emerged as the fastest growing economy since economic reforms of 1978. So this is the year from where China had become and developed its economy to such a rate that it can challenge the dominance of US easily. Okay, so this year becomes very important. We are not going to discuss it right now, but you need to keep in mind this is the time and this is the time period and this is the year from where we saw the major economic reforms which led to a growth and development into China's economy. Okay, which made it an important player of the world arena. So to be projected to overtake, so now it has been projected and it has been assumed that China will overtake US economy and US power as the largest economy by 2040. So by 2040 China will be the emerging and the leading economic power around the world. This has been assumed. With the economic strength of population, along with its economic strength, we can also say China, the important factors which leads to the growth and development of China are its population. As we know, China has a huge population. At number one, it is having the maximum population, but this population is a quality population, not the quantity population. In many growing countries and developing country, we see the uneducated people, we see so much of poverty, illiteracy, which leads to the population growth, but that population is not quality population, that is a quantitative, only in number. But in terms of China, this population, although they are having the most population in the world, but that population is a quality population which adds to its strength to become a most important economic power in the world which can challenge the dominance of US. So its population is very important. Land mass, so in terms of area, it is covering a very big area. If you see the map of China, so it is covering a huge area which adds to many resources. If it is having a huge area, it means it will have access to many resources. Okay, so natural resources, it will have access to natural resources, as well as according to the population it is also having good human resources, skilled laborers, skilled population. So if we talk about resources, naturally it is having natural resources, and they have the more area covering under their territory, and also they are having human resources because they have the population size, the biggest population size. Regional location and political influence, of course, there, if you look at the regional location, it is very close to China, sorry, USSR or Russia, we can say. So, and other neighboring countries also. So it is centrally located, and that is why we are saying regional location is good. And political influence, recently we can say how important China has become. So because of its political influence, it is growing even stronger in terms of technology, in terms of military, in terms of economy, in terms of trade, everything. That is why we are studying this topic as new center of power which can challenge US dominance recently. And this is the current scenario of China, that it is one of the most important player at the world arena. So this was some introduction part of the recent status of China and the world platform. But we'll try to understand the growth and development of China into an important and a strong economy which is challenging US dominance. This we'll try to understand into various phases. So to understand the different phases of China as how they have evolved from after their independence, so we need to know something about their past. So we are starting with their past after independence. So soon after the independence, the People's Republic of China, in short we also call it PRC, that is PRC, People's Republic of China, came into being. So after independence in 1949, the party which came into existence and into power was People's Republic of China, PRC. Okay, this was a communist party, we can say, and this came into existence only after this communist revolution, which was led by Mao. So under the leadership of Mao, this communist revolution was led out, and because of it, PRC came into existence in 1949 after independence. So China got independence in 1949 as a change of regime, and it became a communist country. It government was PRC, which came into existence after a communist revolution. So all this is important, and their leader was Mao, you can see here. And all this system and this government followed the system and the model which was followed by Soviet model. So we know what type of model USSR followed, as all the means of productions were controlled and by the state. There was no private ownership, and all the means of production like land, industries, okay, schools, offices, everything was run and controlled by the state. Although one thing was kept in mind, same in USSR, everyone, no one was unemployed. So here also they assured that everyone was employed. Social welfare, education was given to all. They had all better health facilities in China also. So same things we have studied under Soviet model also, where everyone was treated equally. No one was given the more power. No private ownership was there. So everything, all the resources were distributed, all the profit were distributed according to the wish of the state. So state was the thing which was having the major power. Same structure was followed in China also after 1949. So the resources grew China's economy at rate of 5 to 6%. So we can say here, assuring, when it was assuring employment, social welfare, education for all, better health facilities, China began to use its own resources. Now China began to use its own natural resources and own human resources to grow its economy at a rate of 5 to 6%. It means it has cut down all the links, all the connections with the outside world. It has closed its door, and it had, we can say, it had pulled the iron curtain, as it was opposite to the western world. It was not connected to the western world. So they wanted to use their own resources and grow their economy, and they started growing their economy at 5 to 6%. The same thing I have written here. China snapped means to cut down and to move away. So it had moved away. It had stopped all its relation with the Western world and the capitalist world. So China snapped all its ties with the capitalist world and depended on its own resources. Now China started depending its own resources, natural resources and human resources, to grow and develop its economy. It did not wanted any ties, any connection with the capitalist world or the Western world. So it had closed its economy. It has put a iron curtain, we can say. It created a model of state-owned heavy industry. So now it was having a unique structure, we could say, a unique model, where they had decided that they will have the heavy industries, but those will be state-owned. As we know, they followed the ideology of Soviet Union. So all the industries were under the control of state, and that is the government, but from the capital accumulated from the agriculture. So they will grow their heavy industries, but they will grow their heavy industries on the basis of the surplus which will come out from the agriculture. So whatever production will be there in the agriculture, and the surplus and the raw materials and the economy, whatever they will grow from agriculture, all that investment will be done to grow the heavy industries. So basically we can say China in the beginning was an agricultural based society, which on the basis of agriculture surplus wanted to grow their heavy industries, but those industries were run under state. So this was the model and idea of China after the independence. Same like Soviet Union, we can say, because this was a communist country following the ideology of Soviet Union. As it was short of foreign exchange, since it was using its own resources to produce its own domestic goods, its own they were more focused into agriculture, and on the basis surplus of agriculture they were building their heavy industries. So they were definitely short of foreign exchange, and foreign exchange is required to buy the modern technologies and machines from the western world, from the outside world. But they had closed their doors, they had put a curtain, as we said, so they were not linked with the western world, all the capitalist countries, so they were short of foreign exchange. So what they said, decided to substitute imports. They said we will not do any import or exports, we will focus on domestic goods, we will produce our own domestic goods, that is our citizens, our population, and we will not be dependent on any production or any commodities which will be imported by the other countries, because we do not have foreign exchange, and also we have cut down our relations with the capitalist country. It means with the help of our resources, natural resources and human resources and the skilled laborers, we'll develop our own domestic goods and production with the help of industries. This point also I have already explained in the upper discussion. Employment and social welfare were ensured to all its citizens and in the USSR. Same was followed in China also, where we said that their lifestyle was common for everyone, or we can say the state assured minimum standard of living for each and every citizen. So, as we are studying the evolution of the economic growth and development of China, how they started after their independence, and what were the models they had been following, as they had closed their doors for the Western countries and they did not wanted any import exports with the other countries, so they were using their own natural resources. Okay, so the economy grew. In the beginning, the economy was growing at a respectable rate at 5 to 6%, but an annual population. Now here was the problem. Otherwise, China would have moved smoothly with the same procedure as they were following after independence. But along with 5-6% of the economical growth, there was a problem, that was the population growth. As we know, China is having the maximum population in the world. From the after independence, they were still starting facing this problem of population growth rate, which was increasing 2 to 3%, which led to the economic growth rate was insufficient. It means if their economy was increasing, okay, at 5 to 6%, okay, that was good, it was increasing, okay, but their population was this much, but now the population was growing equally and more than this. Okay, so it means whatever economic developments or economic growth they were having, that was insufficient for the population to serve their population in terms of food grains and agriculture and other commodities, so that they can have a good facilities, a balanced lifestyle, a good education, a good health facilities. That all was insufficient because the population was growing more than the growing economic growth. Even the agricultural production was not sufficient to generate a surplus for industries. Here agriculture production was also not so much which could be a surplus which the industries could use for the growth and development. So we can say there was an imbalance between the resource and population. These were the resource and this was the population. This was the imbalance. So the resources were limited, but population size was continuously increasing. This led to the problem for China, this imbalance. That is why you can see here, I am reading it again. The economy grew at a rate of respectable rate of 5 to 6%, but an annual population growth rate of 2 to 3% meant that economic growth rate was insufficient. Again here, agriculture, as we said, their heavy industries were based on the surplus of the industries, but now this agriculture production was insufficient to serve and serve such a big population, so they were not having any surplus for industries now. So all the production was used by the population. International trade was minimal, as they had closed their doors, they had a closed economy, so there was no international trade. Their per capita income was very low. It means we could say after the independence, within few years, China was in the stage, in the position of stagnant. And this was a problem because same problem was with USSR also. As we saw, there were many factors, although for the disintegration of USSR, was China was on the same path of stagnant. stagnation, as it had closed its links with the other outside world. Now we'll see the other phase of the growth of the economy of China. What was the next step taken by the administration or the government of China to grow its economy, to make a change in the structure of the model of their economy? And that is why today we see China is an emerging economy and one of the most powerful countries. So now we'll see change in the China's economic policies. Because of that stagnation, it was realized by the administration of the China and the government of the China and the people of the China that now this was the time. Now they had to make changes in their economic policies. Now, so they started with 1970s. You have to remember this date. So the changes started coming from 1970s. China leadership took a major policy decision. So remember this date. From 1970s means for entire 10 years. It's a decade, 1970s. So within these 10 years, 1970 to 79, they had taken few important economic policy decisions which has changed the fate or the destiny of China, which we see today. China re-established political economic isolation with major political policy decisions taken in 1970. These included China-US relation establishment in 1972. So they re-established the political and economic relations and the isolation, as they had isolated themselves from the outside world. They had closed the doors, but now with the new economic policies, they had started a relationship with US. So China-US relations established and they started in 1972. So please remember this date. For the first time, China started having a good relations with outside power, actually with US, from 1972. So in this way you can understand how after independence there was so much of problems and imbalance between the population growth and the resources which were available. And then we saw in 1970 China chose new policies. 1972 US started a relation with the US. And in 1973, premier means the leader of China, Zhou Enlai, proposed for four modernization. Now this leader, Zhou Enlai, he proposed four modernization. He said that there are the four fields actually which need to be modernized, with where we need to take the help of the outside world. We need to have the modern machines in place so that we can grow and develop in the various fields of agriculture, industry, science and technology, and military, which cannot be achieved by the resources within China. We need to merge ourselves, we need to integrate the economy of China with the outside world, and so that we can grow in the fields of agriculture, industry, science and technology, and military. So there can be a question, so you need to remember which were the four modernization put forward by Zonlai in 1973. So this is a diagram of your book which has been given in the book, also NCERT book. This bicycle actually shows the structure, or we can say the economic policy of China after 1970s, or in the phase of 1970s when it started growing. So it had changed its policy. According to the policy, its political system was a communist system. This wheel of the this cycle shows a symbol of a communist party. It means their political system was still communist, but in terms of their economic system, in terms of trade, development, growth, they had followed the system and the models of capitalist world, of the modern or the western world. As we saw, they had started a relation with US. It means economically trade and business had started in terms of capitalist world. That is why the second wheel shows the logo of a dollar. So economic system, capitalist system. So China had started following both communalism and a capitalist, which is a unique characteristic of China and which is one of the important reason for its success, we can say, or a good economic growth. So this is the most important here, as we had discussed in the starting of the lecture, where I told you after 1978 there was a huge change in the economic structure of China. From it had reached to a great height. So by 1978, then Xi Jinping announced, okay, he's a leader, he announced open door policy and economic reforms in China. Finally he had announced that we are going to open our economy, we will use the open door policy, and we'll reform, make many economic reforms in China. Okay, so this led, after this announcement, there was privatization of agriculture. They had privatized agriculture, which was previously run under state, but now in 1982 it was privatized, and it was followed by privatization of the industries in 1998. So you can see the gap. In a same time, they were not we can say privatized, so slowly they have moved in the field of privatization. At first they had privatized agriculture, and after a few years they had privatized the industries. This was a very intelligent step by the leaders of China, we can say, as it was not done by in the case of USSR. When we saw one of the important reasons when of disintegration, we saw this shock therapy. What was shock therapy? Where they had privatized everything within a day. But here they had taken this step slowly, as they have learned from the past. Okay, so in 1982 and 1998 they had privatized their agriculture and industries. Now, trade barriers were eliminated. Trade barriers, taxes were all eliminated in the special economic zone. There were some particular areas, zones created by China, and in those zones, they were the foreign investors could come and invest their enterprises there, so that they can have a good economy or outcome of income. They can have a good industrial base. They could have more employment. Okay, so all that led to because of these special economic zones which were created by China. Or in these zones there were no trade taxes and trade tariffs, etc. China followed its own path in introducing a market economy. The China did not go, so it had introduced its own way of making its market economy. They were making a transaction, although, but they were taking it step by step, slowly and gradually. They were evolving stronger and stronger. But in the case of USSR, we saw they did shock therapy, which led to the disintegration of USSR. We saw one of the important reason. Okay, so they had opened their economy step by step. So this was a smart move by the Chinese leader, an outcome of which we can see China has become such an important player at the world global platform recently. So consequences of new economic policies. So what were the consequences we see of the new economic policies? When we talked about the consequences of the disintegration of USSR, in that we were seeing what were the things they were doing wrong. But here we are seeing what were the things China was doing good. So privatization of agriculture led to the remarkable rise in agriculture production and rural income. Okay, because of the privatization of agriculture, there was a huge increase in the agriculture production, because of which rural income increased. When rural income increased, the people had more savings, and because of these more savings they were able to run their rural industries, cottage industries. And because of these special economic zones, this led to phenomenal rise in foreign trade. So most of the foreign countries were interested in investing in these zones where there was no trade we can say taxes or tariffs imposed by China. So these were free trade zones. So most of the foreign countries wanted to invest over here. So this led to economic growth for China, more employment. China became the most favorable destination. So most of the countries around the world now they focused on China, as they saw an opportunity to invest and they could have the good output. So China became the favorable destination for FDI anywhere in the world. China had large foreign now, because China has opened its economy. There were creation of SEZs. Okay, so many countries were coming and investing. So India now, China was having a good huge reserve of foreign exchange. Previously we read they were having a short foreign exchange, but now as they were having foreign exchange reserves with them, this allowed them, they could make good investments, big investments in the other countries. Same other countries were coming and investing in China. China was investing in the other parts of the countries. Now you can see most of the market in India and other Asian countries around the world, we can say. So we can see market, lot of commodities are of China. So China has controlled the market so well. In 2001, China became the member of World Trade Organization. As its trade is growing so fast, economically it is becoming so stronger because of its trade. It had controlled, it has made a trap around the world to its trade. So by 2001, China had become a member of World Trade Organization. Okay, by 2001, China has become a member of World Trade Organization. Okay, so like that we have seen the evolution of China, as it has become the most superpower, we can say, in terms of its economic power. It can challenge the dominance of US definitely in the coming years. Recently it is an important player as already, but there were some limitations as growth of China's economy. Some limitations were unemployment has risen in China. Since there were new economic policies were adopted, this had led to unemployment also. around 100 million people looking for job in China. Female employment and conditions of work are bad as in Europe of 18th. As we saw the condition of female when we were studying about French Revolution, Russian Revolution, okay, in the 18th, 19th century, same condition of the female were in China now, as they are not having a healthy conditions for, especially for the working women's. Because of the developmental activities, we can see environmental degradation, corruption have increased. Now corruption is taking, because economically they are becoming stronger, which is leading to a lot of corruption activities, okay, and along with developmental activities, lot of environmental degradation we can see there, okay, and pollution also, inequality, and one more thing we can see, inequality between rich and poor. With the change of policies, economic policies, there has been inequality between rich and poor in China now. So with this we come to the end of this topic, and in the next part we'll try to cover the next part. Okay, till then, thank you, take care.